Uh, so let's talk about your first 20 hours with Business Central. The idea behind this book, which is what this stream is about, if you didn't know, now available in hard copy. Yay! The idea behind this book was that many people were looking for, I need to be able to set up my Business Central system. And where do I start? And many times when we as partners are implementing solutions for customers, the first things we need to teach them are the first things that you need to learn over and over again. Any environment, we have to teach about how pages work, how cards work. What do the buttons on the UI look like? What do the different things mean in Business Central, like posting groups and all those different terms? So the idea behind the book is to try to make it a little bit easier for customers to self-serve, to augment what training offerings you're already giving them, to have some sort of reference guide. But separately, I also noticed that a lot of developers in the space and technical people often rely heavily upon Cronus. And if you were to ask them to set up a demonstration company or a test company to work with the system, there's a lot of steps to that and they don't know what to do. So the idea behind this was, from an empty company, how do you get to, I can post basic transactions, inventory transactions, financial transactions, things like ship an item and receive payment for it. So that's the idea behind this, and let's take a look into the book itself. We're gonna dive into some of the things. Now, first of all, chapter-wise, in a general part breakdown structure, we have, and honestly, it's easier to see the nice overview on the website. If you go to products on the sparebrain.com website, and look at books, you will see that we have a nice set of summaries of the different chapters. And what I've done to make life a little easier for everyone to get to know the writing, to get to know the book, all those sort of things, this entire chapter 1 and chapter 2 are available as a preview. So if you come down to the bottom here, you can get a free copy of the preview. It is a Gumroad ePDF. You just punch in your email and you'll get a copy of the PDF. And that preview version of the book includes all first 40 pages of the book, so about 10% of the book, and it covers a lot of the stuff we're going to cover today, showing you the different things that I get into. So let's talk about what you'll find in the preview section and in the beginning part of the book a little bit, which is getting to know Business Central. What is a role center? Some of the terminology things that we're going to be spending some time on. And everything is broken down in a really easy to map out and visualize sort of way. So for example, let's bump up the zoom a little bit for anyone watching on mobile devices or anything. We have on, for example, the role center here, everything marked out with all the indicators of what section we're talking about. And then off to the side here, we have different example breakdowns of the different parts. So we can see here, one maps to one here, and everything is nice and clear cut, laying out all of the different parts. If we zoom on back out so we can see a couple of pages, we talk about what is a list, what are the components to a list, what are all of these different little widgets in the action bar of a list page, what does this do, what are the different display modes. When you're starting to work with some of the other elements like cards, documents, and worksheets, breaking down step by step all the individual little pieces of this. All of this is included in the preview, and the preview copy, you're welcome to download that, give that to customers. If this helps you get your customers up to speed on how the system works, fantastic. That's the whole point, honestly. So breaking down all of the different elements, the ways that you're going to be interacting with things. In chapter 1, we cover some of the skills that everyone using Business Central should know how to do. How do you apply filters to the system? What are some of the different filtering options that you can do? A really nice little breakdown, including things like, using percent my customers in a filter list on the customer list. Walkthroughs of how do you do personalization, for example. How can you add a field that isn't currently displayed, but it's there, it's available? How do you show that? And some of the tools that are very valuable for customers to be able to give useful information to support teams, like how do I use the page inspector? What are some of the different notification controls I have? How do flow fields work? What's a work date? For those of us who are in Business Central, we work with these things for so long, you forget that it's something you have to explain. Nowhere in the system is it still called a flow filter that the customer is going to see. They see filter totals by. So good language clarification stuff, understanding the role explorer, some of the keyboard shortcuts. And then chapter 2, which again, still all included in the preview, talking about at a general glance, what are the modules in the system? What is included in each of these different parts? What's the general idea? When we're talking about an ERP system, we're talking about a bunch of financial data, some business data, setup data, documents, all those sort of things. What are the terms that we use in our industry to define all those different things? And then when we're taking a transaction, how does that hit different parts of the system? How does the data flow through things? So for example, when I post a sales order to ship, what documents are created? What inventory ledger entries are created? When I invoice, what happens? So this kind of breaks down some of the different flows of how data connects in the system. All of chapter 1 and I believe chapter 2 are in the preview copy of it. So you are welcome to just head off to the sparebrain.com site and right down at the bottom here, get the free ebook. Go for it. It'll sign you up for a newsletter just in case there's stuff we promote. We haven't in 1 year sent any. We might send one soon, so we're very gracious about we don't sell your email or abuse it. But now let's talk about the stuff that's behind the pay version of it. And for clarity, pay version, there is an ebook that you can buy on Gumroad. It will drop you right to a checkout form where you can. Well, that's interesting. It does clarify the price here in the bottom, but it drops you right to the checkout immediately. It's a $30 ebook. And about 300 pages of content, and it's all searchable, indexable, all that fun stuff as a PDF. If you are like me, the kind of person who likes to be able to hand a book to someone, it is available on Amazon. It's a print on demand, but that's fine, right? So I'm pretty satisfied with the quality of how these came out. I bumped it up to color. Eats into my margin like crazy, but it looks nice, and that's the point, right? So what's in the rest of the section is, okay, let's talk about, like, when you're setting up the system as an empty company, what are some of the ideas that you have to have in your head? For example, posting groups. Again, those of us who are working with Business Central, posting groups is something that, well, yeah, we have lots of those, and this is what they do. It's how transactional and master setup data connects to your chart of accounts. That's the basic idea. But, there are some great websites out there that explain a little bit what some of the different posting groups are. And I credit Todovic's blog with some of those. I don't include too many. I direct people mostly to that. But we talk about, okay, so to get things started, we're going to need to set up some of the posting groups first off. Okay. when you're dealing with a complicated ERP system, one of the challenges is what order do you do things in? You need all your GL accounts, sure. You need posting groups, you need customers, you need all sorts of different manner of things. So where do you start? And this workbook takes you through the process of understanding some of the different steps that you would go through for this process of setting in some of that initial stuff. So then we dive into our customer posting groups, vendor inventory, understanding. And in our case, we build a scenario as we build the book that talks about, maybe we have different seasonal goods, domestic versus international customers. How do we want to handle that? And then once you've got all your posting groups, well, let's talk about some of the general things like company info, accounting periods, and all that. How you get a lot of these core things set up. What do you need to be thinking about with number series? There are a variety of interesting opinions about what you should have for number series. And thank you to the comments. Yes, I have. The comment is that you get the impression the author has put a lot of heart and soul into this. I like to think so. It definitely was a passion project. It's not a for-profit project. It is not profitable to write books in the industry. So let's see. Ooh, nice. You became MB 800 certified, and this helped? Nice. That is fantastic. I'm glad to hear it because there's a lot of stuff you need to know to get past that test. I should take it soon. And then we talk about, okay, for each of the different modules, they kind of have a main setup table. What are the things you need to know, like understanding all of the rounding setups in the general ledger setup? What are some of the options that you should be thinking about for purchase and payable setup or accounts receivable setup? Then we're going to be doing just like a customer. We're going to import a whole bunch of existing customers and vendors and items into our system. So what are some of the things that we can do to make that import process a little bit easier and to set up new customers more correctly? Because after all, maybe our old system, we have all the address info correctly, but there's lots of things that you need to set up, posting groups and discount groups and payment terms and all those sort of things. So how do you set up some of the templates so that way you don't have to manually enter in all of these different fields when you import, say, 500 customers from your old system? The templating system lets you apply those templates as you're importing all of that data so that your customers are all set up right. Nice and easy. And this walks you through the setup of how do you use these config templates. Those config templates, a lot of people don't know how to use them, but they allow you to set up defaults for just about any table in the system. Super powerful. Great to get to know. Strongly recommend it. And you can set up multiple templates per table. And it does get a little confusing because there are multiple template systems still in the product from evolution over time. So this walks you through a lot of them. How do you understand items, units of measure? Why do we need to set those up? How are those used? Item category codes is a very underutilized function. Like if you just want to be able to, in our demonstration company, we have normal and seasonal items, for example. We could run reports based on that normal versus seasonal. And as we demonstrate in our demo company here, we create a hierarchy of these item categories. So we can get into the details and say, well, I want to see how my spring outdoor sales have been month over month during the spring season. Or I just want to zoom out and see some of the reports by seasonal. So by using item categories, you can be able to aggregate your totals and things like that. And then finally, with a lot of that setup stuff, then we walk through how do you use config packages, which is what the migration tools, the data migration engine, how do we make use of those different templates to import the data for the first time? If you're building a company for testing purposes and that sort of thing, these data templates are a fantastic way of being able to quickly create a whole huge pile of test data. So if you need to have, for whatever reason, you're testing something and you need 500 customers, well, you can just export these templates, use Excel's, just drag, renumber, and make a huge pile of customers. Go for it. It's a fantastic way to populate your data. Then, with all of the breakdown of some of the different imports that we're going to be doing, like the chart of accounts, how we review the results of bringing in all that master data of all the chart of accounts, customers, items, vendors. Now with all that set, now we can connect the posting groups to all those different things. So cool, we'll do that. We do talk a little bit about the subcategory system on the chart of accounts and how that drives your account reporting, your account schedules. Good stuff if you haven't worked with it. Many developers have not worked with account schedules, so something to be thinking about. It's good to know how it works. Then we dive through to talk about some of the last bits and pieces, languages, currencies, exchange rates. These are all pretty important for many customers, so it's good to know what are your options around some of the translations. How do you set up the different currency codes? There are great blog posts of how to connect the currency exchange rates to be able to retrieve the data as a service and be able to have your exchange rates all the time. So let's see here, just cleaning out some bots who are having a fun time spreading some Cyrillic spam. Thanks, guys. Oh, I'm popular enough for spam bots. Then we get into, setting up bank accounts. This is a pretty short chapter because it varies so significantly by region. So that's a pretty short chapter. It's just worthy of a mention here, but you will want to work with local partners because it varies so much by region. For those of you who have not worked outside of your local region, it does, but something to be aware of. And then, okay, we've got all the setup stuff. We've got master data, we've got all the posting groups and everything. So now how do we bring in the beginning balances of our inventory? How do we bring in the customer beginning balances and vendors and all of those sort of operations? How do we populate journal batches with the imports and all that sort of thing? So then when we do posting to journals, how does that affect some of the different accounts? So we go into looking at, like here, for example, we're running the adjust cost routine, something that many developers maybe aren't familiar with. You got to do the adjusting. And what does that look like from our preview of the posted costs? We dive into the example reports of seeing all that. And then, okay, cool. Now, how do we bring in the open balances? What's the right way to do that? There's a couple different strategies. We've got our master data, we've got our setup data, we've got our opening balances. So then we finally hit part 4 where we cover a lot of the basic operations, like how to create purchase orders, how to post them, the basics of how a PO works. So again, this chapter is very aimed at rookie level info. But there's lots of great info in here about how you do like attachments, posting, and then we look through, what's the difference between doing partial posting or complete posting, and we dive through the whole invoice process. We also take a side dip into, okay, you've posted this purchase document. How do you email it to your supplier? And this then walks through a little bit of what are the different email scenario assignments that you can send these documents to different customers. How does that email look, and what is the result that you're going to get as that? We dive into the sales side of operation. Now that we've received some goods into inventory, we can sell it. So we dive into how do you create a sales order, which is very similar to all sorts of things. But how do you do pricing for items and all of that fun stuff? When you break down the sales order, what are some of the options that you have in, say, for example, shipping? What do the fact boxes look like? Same sort of thing of, we go into what does it look like when you send an invoice to a customer? How do you post that? Review the results of what the posting looks like. How do you see the balances on the customer ledger entry? How do you see what the customer currently owes, and be able to drill through to look at all the detail? Take a swing at selling in a different currency just to show the multi-currency transaction, as well as doing partial shipping. We talk about how do you, like, if you ship 3 different sales orders, how do you send that as a single invoice with the combined invoicing functionality? Which again, these are things that maybe a lot of companies don't necessarily need their developers to know how to do these things, but this is something that it's good to know how to do these operations. You've posted the shipment, you forgot to add the tracking. How do you go back and you add that tracking? How do you send customer statements? We dive through the whole process of making payments using the vendor payment journal. We jump through the receiving payment side, doing all of the cash receipt, and how we make sure that the application connects the payment to the invoice, and understanding the customer ledger entries and how the balances all combine together. So that's a fun one. And then we have a whole chapter on just fixing errors. Like creating sales returns, how to undo a shipment, what do you need to do credit memos. Let's see, yeah. If your vendor gives you a credit memo, what do you do with that? If a customer makes like a random payment and you've applied it to the wrong invoice, because it's never a perfect world. Customers don't pay exactly which one they meant. So how do you change that after the fact? How do you reapply those so that the balances of each document are correct? What are some of the recurring tasks that you would need to do with the system, like closing the fiscal years and closing up the income statement? What do you need to do to run some of those annual operations? So I was pretty happy with how that came through. Chapter 20 is just a little blip of a chapter, because 20 hours, 20 chapters. Some of those chapters are definitely more than an hour. The recommended reading on some of the other resources that are out there, some of the different Learn tools, and we have some example import files. This will take you in a roundabout way, but eventually you get yourself to our GitHub here. That, for example, all of the sample data that I used in the book is available as downloadable files, so that you could use it to follow along and do the data import migrations just like the book does. So that's pretty good. There is some appendix info about, like, for example, how do you create a new company? What are the different options? Hopefully that'll stay relevant. And as mentioned, there's a pretty thorough index. So if you're just trying to figure out, okay, well, I need to figure out where do I set payment methods? Oh, that's on page 76. Okay, cool. So 76 we go. So payment terms and methods. So nice and easy, pretty good stuff. I'm very happy with how this came out. I'm hopeful that this is a useful utility for people who need to know how to use the system, that maybe just haven't had the time or inclination or opportunity to get to know working with it. And if it's something that you potentially want to sell to your customers, for example, or you want to poke your project manager or salespeople to say, we could sell, 20 copies to this new customer and let them work through some of these operations, you can sign up to be an affiliate type thing, and you'll get a percentage of all of revenues whenever you sell copies of the book via the links. It's 20% of the ebook so for each copy you sell. So it's just a matter of you sign up, and this, much like many of the other offerings, is offered through Gumroad, so they will pay you directly, and they take all the tax for that right out of there as appropriate for the destination of where the customer is. Or you can simply refer people to our website. I'm fine with that. And you can also just buy people copies on Amazon. And if you're one of the folks who has enjoyed it, I would love to see some positive reviews land on this. We've got the 1 rating. That's new today. So it'll be good to get that out there. I am probably going to update the print copy. It is based on, I want to say, version 17 or 18, and I do need to update it slightly, only because it's bugging me a little bit. I'll update it for V20. In some of the screenshots, you still have the open to Excel instead of the share link, but other than that, I've checked it through. We're still very much on target. If you buy the ebook version of it, anytime there's a new version, I will email everyone to say, hey, there's a new version. You can download a free copy of it here. Ebook format is free updates for life. I can't obviously do that for the print version, but I'm probably going to update the print version, and now I can spiffily say MVP author Jeremy. So that's a nice little bonus there. So hopefully this will be of value and of use to people. I hope the tour through it was pretty good. It was an interesting effort to make this, for sure. And for those of you who did not know, this was actually written in 30 days. So we hustled to get it through and get it done quick, and I feel like it came out very, very good. But I see in the comments that someone is super happy for having bought the book, and if you have bought the print version of it and I release a new version of the ebook version, just shoot me an email. It's I'm not hard to find, but it's just jeremy@sparebrain.com. Just shoot me a email, and I'll get you a discount code on the book, and on the ebook version of it. Odds are good I can probably just send you a new version of the PDF. That's fine. So, okay, well, I hope this has been a helpful little tour for folks who are maybe on the fence or not sure the value of it. It's just wanted to go, hey, let's talk through what's in here, what's the point of it, and hopefully this will bring value to those of you who are trying to create your own test scripts and you don't want to rely on Kronos. Hopefully this is of value to people who have spent some time learning to do the development around Nav and BC, but you haven't had to set up a BC for yourself before, and hopefully it's of value to those of you who are implementing that. Hopefully that's of value to those of you who are implementing the system to be able to show your customers another resource that they can use to look for answers in a quick way, and be able to spend more focused time with those of you that are out there working with you on the deep dive technical things rather than what's a fact box. So okay, well, I hope this has been a useful use of time for everyone. And for those of you who are not aware, I do have a session coming up in Dynamics Con. That is next month, and that'll be a session on the road to BC development and talking about some of the challenges of technology and BC development in our space. And we're also going to have a sponsored session where we're going to talk about this book as well as our no-code API solution that we now have in AppSource, and we'll also probably make mention of the app source licensing tool for partners. So, and that session is going to be fun because we'll be announcing some pretty big news on the no-code API tool that we have that currently is read-only. Hint. Well, hopefully this has been good for everyone, and take care. I need some outro music like Steve's got. Take care.